On the night of May 27, 2017, friends Hannah Cornelius and Cheslene Marsh were looking forward to a fun night out with friends in Stellenbosch, South Africa. Little did they know that 4 men had been observing the group during the evening. As Hannah and Cheslene said their goodbyes, the men saw an opportunity. In an instant, their pleasant night took a sinister turn when the men surprised them, forcing their way into Hannah's car at knife point. What followed was a horrific series of events that would shock the nation and shed light on the ongoing tragedy of gender-based violence in South Africa. Hi and welcome back to our channel. If you are new here, please consider subscribing, as it helps us motivate to create more intriguing content for you. Let's have a look at the case of Hannah Cornelius. Among Africa's most well-known nations is South Africa. It is home to some of the friendliest people you will ever meet, has breathtaking natural beauty, and is rich in cultural diversity. With its grasslands, long beaches, and towering mountains, South Africa offers plenty of visually appealing sights. It also enjoys an untarnished reputation for crime and violence. This is mostly because of gang issues and femicide, cries for which there is little international media coverage. Today, our attention is on Stellenbosch, a town to the east of Cape Town. Nestled amidst hundreds of vineyards, Stellenbosch, sometimes referred to as Ecostat in Afrikaans, is a university town that is heavily involved in South Africa's notorious wine business. Stellenbosch is an extremely affluent place to reside because of these two characteristics. Hannah Cornelius lived in an affluent neighborhood with a lot of boutique cafes and art galleries lining the oak-shaded streets. On February 12, 1996, Hannah was born to Willem and Anna Cornelius. Her mother, Anna, was a practicing attorney, while her father, Willem, served as a magistrate for a nearby town. We think it is safe to say that Hannah grew up in a household that was both solid and professional. Hannah became a sister to her younger brother, who was not identified for his safety, 3 years after Hannah was born. Hannah quickly adopted the role of an extremely watchful older sister. When her younger brother had learning challenges, Hannah was always there to support him and was delighted to watch him grow. She was a well-rounded and kind adolescent who excelled in theater class and loved it as well. She was a superb pianist as well. She was undoubtedly a creative talent. Hannah had a great time in high school. She would finally earn 6 distinction grades with an average score of at least 85 upon graduation because she always gave it her all. In addition to being well-liked and content, Hannah was enamored with Finello, her high school sweetheart. To her father's dismay, they would even attend the prom together. Seeing his little Hannah grow up and be apart from them upset him. Hannah's persona is authentic and unaggressive. She was clever, friendly, and extremely diligent. Naturally, this prompted her to enroll in college and, more precisely, to pursue a bachelor's degree in the humanities. Hannah had an inquisitive nature and a strong desire to understand the people and things around her. 2 months later, she was at last approved for the program. Hannah started her bachelor's degree program at Stellenbosch University in the summer of 2015, and she embraced her studies with enthusiasm. Hannah still needed to go to and from campus even though she was living nearby at the Irene ladies' residence. So, using these methods, a 90-year-old grandma gave her the old blue and white Volkswagen City Golf, which she was unable to drive. Hannah committed her free time to volunteering at the nearby Tears Animal Sanctuary in Cape Town in between her classes and studies. Hannah was a kind person who was curious about her surroundings. She had little trouble making friends at university because she was always prepared to lend a hand to others. Her network of friends also grew as a result of the frequent introductions she made through her present fields. This applied to one of Hannah's closest friends. She would meet fellow theology student Cheslene Marsh as early as her 2nd year. Cheslene was a committed learner who put in a lot of effort and got along well with Hannah in every way. Although Hannah frequently assisted Cheslene with his academics and Cheslene always returned the favor, the two were simply very good friends and had no romantic interest in one another. Let us fast forward to Friday night in 2017. Hannah and Cheslene were well into their 2nd year of college, and following a demanding work and study week, they made plans to go out for drinks with friends on Friday night. The night proceeded well. Everyone was having a wonderful time, or at least had a few drinks, and Hannah, Cheslene, and the others were having a lot of fun playing dominoes, which is a common game among students in South Africa. There is not much to report about this evening, really. The talk went as usual, and the happy moment on Friday gradually faded into the wee hours of Saturday. May 27th, Hannah made the decision to finish the evening since she could tell that their group was gradually winding down. However, Cheslin offered to bring her back to Irene Gull's house, which was not too far from his own, since he knew that it was perilous for a girl to walk home alone in Stellenbosch. He did this while holding a skateboard. After acknowledging and accepting his offer, Hannah and her friends departed to make the relatively uneventful trip home. They had no trouble at all getting to Hannah's house. Resuming the worry, Hannah was now concerned about Cheslin arriving home by herself because, as you may recall, her car was parked only around the corner. She consequently offered to give him a ride back. Hannah would not listen to Cheslin's insistence that he could ride his longboard home. This late at night, she knew that her car was far safer than a skateboard. The two then got into Hannah's Volkswagen and headed in the direction of Cheslin's home. On Saturday, May 27th, 2017, at 3:23 a.m., Hannah stopped her car on a small area of grass and bid farewell to the other person. However, throughout their conversation, neither of them noticed the four men passing by on the road. They had no idea that these four men would choose to loop back into the car. They were shady characters, and Hannah and Cheslin would be their next gullible victims. However, the story took an unsettling turn when the suspects covertly confronted Hannah and Cheslin using a nearby vehicle. Cheslin and Hannah would feel quickly unsettled when there was a loud knock on the door. A flick knife and a pointed screwdriver were shoved up against their bodies after the passenger door was pulled open. Very quickly, the situation became very real and quite serious. Hannah and Cheslin were now the actual victims of a carjacking as the four men forced their way inside. At this moment, Nashville Julius, one of the four males, separates from the other three and stops taking part in the activities for the remainder of the evening. It was now his turn to follow and apprehend an unknown car. Ibn van Niekerk was pinning Cheslin in the back as Vernon Whitboy and Geraldo Parsons flanked Hannah inside the car, shoving her between the two front seats. All five of them get into Hannah's fairly unique Volkswagen Golf and drive off around 3:40 a.m. For the two of them, these must have been excruciating moments. Sadly, this was only the beginning for Cheslin and Hannah. Neither of them realized what they were in for. Hannah's car would disappear from view for more than an hour after the security film. However, a surveillance camera at a gas station just outside of Stellenbosch noticed it again at 4:34 a.m. The men had pulled over somewhere on this unpaved road leading out of town, and they had pushed Cheslin into the car's boot. They searched him thoroughly, going through his shoes and jacket as well. There is a figure in the passenger seat with a cream-colored jacket as the automobile pulls up to the gas station. One of the males, Vernon Whitboy, is then seen entering the store with a wallet on camera from the station security system. He would take Cheslin's card from him and be getting ready to use the pin that Cheslin had given him to rinse it. Cheslin had obviously told a falsehood regarding the pin number, a decision he would subsequently have to make. The five of them then proceeded to Kraaifontein, a town that is adjacent to Stellenbosch, after getting back into the car. Hannah stayed in the front of her grandmother's car with three unidentified, dangerous guys around her for the whole of this horrifying drive, with Cheslin still in the boot. She tried her hardest to be cooperative and agreeable. She did not look around, nor did she dispute or engage in physical combat. Rather, she gazed directly into the vast, dim road ahead. The men then made a number of excursions across the neighborhood, stopping sometimes to see different people, mostly for the purpose of picking up and dropping off drugs. And through it all, Cheslin remained in the boot. He attempted to kick the car's hood any time he believed the men were not around, but sadly, it stayed closed. That is until the men abruptly stopped the vehicle outside of Kraaifontein at 5 Fontaine at 5:30 in the morning. Hannah inquired as to the men's reason for stopping. They informed Hannah that they were only stopping for a smoke break and that they would be returning her car as soon as they arrived at their location. At that very moment, two of the men exited the vehicle, circled around the rear, and took Cheslin out of the trunk. It was obvious that they were upset that he had not provided them with his PIN number. After pushing and shoving Cheslin a short distance away from the car, they ordered her to lie on the ground. Cheslin realized he was going to die at this time. These were the ones who were going to kill him. Cheslin got down on the ground and glanced up. When he last looked, he saw two men standing over him, each holding a brick. Then everything turned black in an instant. Hannah's nightmares from the previous night were still very much alive as the morning light started to rise beyond the horizon. Sadly, things would only grow worse. After leaving Cheslin, the group drove a short distance to an abandoned paintball course on Bottle Ray Road. After that, all three guys attacked Hannah, and regrettably, things would get much worse. They then took a car to a vineyard. The group then used a sharpened screwdriver to stab Hannah in the neck before using a 40-kilogram rock to smash her head. She passed away at impact. They climbed back into the car and left Hannah's lifeless body by the edge of the vineyard. A young couple living in their little house on the outskirts of Kryfontaine had woken up to a new spring weekend and raised the alarm as daylight flooded the farms and savannas of South Africa. The air filled with the quiet sounds of birds and farm animals. But in addition to these well-known noises, a disconcerting rumble of distant moaning gradually emerged. The moaning quickly developed into long, exhausting screams. Glancing out the window, the couple saw a young man who was covered in blood and appeared confused. To their surprise, it turned out to be Cheslin. He had taken multiple bricks to the head, yet amazingly, he was still alive and had an exceptionally clear mind. He realized he needed to get aid because his companion was missing. The couple that Cheslin encountered were naturally terrified. In fact, he had stumbled down the road in search of the nearest inhabited building. They really initially believed Cheslin to be a gang member and told him to walk on, but he insisted on having the police called. They quickly realized how serious the situation was. In a matter of minutes, Cheslin was begging the local police to assist in locating Hannah. He recounted everything he could recall from the previous evening, including the attackers' faces, the car, and their destination. Unfortunately, it was already too late. Even though he really wanted to assist in finding Hannah, Hannah had been located 2 hours earlier when he was still unconscious. The conclusion was that she had passed away. With Hannah's friends' and family's lives turned upside down, police launched a ceaseless hunt for Cheslin's and Hannah's attackers. They were positive they were searching for a small white and blue Volkswagen. And fortunately for them, there was already evidence of this car throughout the late morning. After killing Hannah Cornelius, Vernon, Eben, and Geraldo had amazingly continued their criminal rampage. We suppose this is a reflection of their ignorance and callousness. In and around Kryfontaine, they were frequently sighted. According to reports, the woman had followed a woman on her way to work and then robbed her of her purse and phone. After that, for a few hours, no one saw these men again, but that same day at 1 p.m., they attacked another woman, taking her hostage this time. Cameras on surveillance caught the vehicle at a nearby Shell gas station. The CTV footage shows the blue Volkswagen arriving at the petrol station. Observe that Eben van Niekerk and the woman they had abducted are now in the back of the vehicle. Witboy then exited the vehicle and walked to an ATM machine. He attempted to withdraw money from the woman's bank account. It seems this may have been a regular activity of his. They took out 3,000 rand, which is about 200 or 150 pounds. Fortunately, their victim was dropped off securely on a country road this time. Following Eben's homecoming, Vernon and Geraldo gave him his 1,000 rand reward for his services. They then attempted to pawn the car off on unrelated strangers following this. They had no idea that the cops had been monitoring their every move since the morning and that, as they carried on cruising the area, they would soon be mercilessly approaching them. Hannah's Volkswagen Golf held 6 people when the night started, but now it was down to just 2 men, Vernon Witboy and Geraldo Parsons. An undercover police car saw the missing car going by just an hour later, and as soon as the pursuit started, a second police van joined the hunt. The men in the blue Volkswagen Golf pulled into the driveway of a nearby private property, desperately attempting to avoid capture by local enforcement. Witnesses appear to be uninvolved as a detective dashes out and starts to walk after the group. Fortunately, a security fence farther down the driveway prevents the blue Volkswagen from continuing to race away. Both guys run away, with one of them dashing and jumping into the river below. But their efforts are eventually futile, since they become stranded and are unable to escape the officers, many of whom are now pursuing them with guns drawn and prepared to fire. Now, at last, their deranged and bizarre game was ended. Whitboy and Geraldo were both more than happy to identify the other two men responsible for these horrible atrocities after their arrests, which resulted in their own arrests the very following day. We just want to take a moment now to emphasize how little these individuals cared about the lives of their victims. For a few $100, these guys were more than ready to kill two innocent people and scare a few more. After learning of the news, Hannah's parents, William and Anna, were particularly upset. Over the next few months, the emotional suffering they had endured seemed to overtake them completely. Hannah's parents established the appropriately titled Hannah Cornelius Foundation in memory of their daughter while the investigators developed a case against their suspects. This foundation's mission is to support at-risk youth by offering advice, counseling, and education. Sincerely, we wish we could tell you right now that these four men would not kill any more people, but sadly, there will soon be another. Less than a year after Hannah's passing, her March 2018, her mother Anna Cornelius was discovered dead and drifting in the South Atlantic Ocean. Willem maintains that his wife had given up on life, even though it was just considered an accident. He thinks she was walking into the ocean and giving up because the grief of losing her daughter was just too much for her to handle. Following this tragedy, a solid case was being made against the guys who killed Hannah and tried to kill Cheslene in court, and their legal actions would eventually start in May 2018. The evidence against them was strong and included witness statements, confessions from Geraldo and Vernon, surveillance film, forensic evidence, and most importantly, Cheslene's courtroom testimony. They would have brought in the actual rock that killed Hannah as proof. He has regrettably lost one ear to death due to blunt force trauma to the head sustained by many bricks. This man was genuinely on a mission to honor his friend, Hannah. He boldly took a stand against his attackers and looked them in the eyes. His family was there for him at every turn, even though it was heartbreaking and emotional to hear his tale. Only two of the four guys would truly admit to their crimes, despite the obvious bias in this case against them. In fact, at these court hearings, all four entered not guilty pleas to their offenses. In the end, Julius, who departed at the start of the night, received a 22-year term for aiding and abetting robbery and kidnapping, while Vernon Whitboy, Geraldo Parsons, and Eben received life sentences. The result of Hannah Cornelius's hateful self-serving desire was her death. Disregarding all others, four men went to the streets to see what they could get. They were devoid of empathy, consideration, or awareness. Their wicked activities caused one innocent student to die horribly and another to suffer lifelong physical harm. Given how tragic the narrative is, all we can do is honor Hannah's memory by focusing on her as she was. Hannah was a kind and generous person who was always willing to lend a hand when someone needed it, whether it was by volunteering or studying. She even demonstrated this on her last night when she gave a friend a ride home. She never listened to the bad ideas and opinions of others. Instead, she insisted on maintaining her own optimistic outlook at all times. She was always her own person. The family should be proud of Hannah for who she turned out to be. She seemed like a beautiful person. In South Africa, men kill 8 women on average per day. That is 5 times greater than the global average in terms of population proportion. The victims of the ongoing battle against femicide in South Africa include Hannah, Nen, Jade, and Carabo, a lengthy list of senseless tragedies that keep rising. Because of his severe autism, Hannah's brother continues to ask when she is coming home. He cannot grasp what happened to her. It is truly miraculous that Cheslene survived the attack, but it has not made his life any easier. He had to take a pause from his studies because of the physical and psychological stress he sustained from the attack. Since then, he has returned to school and chosen to focus on law in an admirable attempt to help those who are similar to him and Hannah. Additionally, her legacy sort of continues with him.